Ladies and gents, PotenzaDSP just released a game-changing sampler VST for people obsessed with that 90s electronic rave sound. This is the best option to get that Amiga crust and grit, costing just under $13 USD. In the early 90s, the prices of professional gear like the Akai S900, 950 was out of reach for your amateur bedroom producers. And so many of them reached for their Amigas, plugged in a sampling cart, pulled out the turntable, and sampled their parents' records. A much more harsh 8-bit sound compared to the Akai's 12-bit or even the S1000 16-bit, the Amiga was responsible for numerous rough and hard-hitting dance cuts in genres like house, jungle, and drum and bass. Amigo, in its simplest form, is a sampler. You load samples into it, and then you manipulate said audio samples. The biggest selling point is the DAC emulation that the sampler applies to anything that comes out of it. So it's very similar to the DAC control in TAL Sampler, or almost like a bit crusher in something like Decimort. However, this one focuses solely on emulating that 8-bit Amiga sound, and it does a damn good job. So I can take something like this bass sample here, plop it right in. Here's the original sample. And then in Amigo. And then we have this sample rate control here where we can reduce it even more. And basically what this means is the lower we reduce the sample rate, the crustier it sounds. Now, like any good sampler, and especially one with a nod towards breakbeat heavy jungle, you can chop up breakbeats directly inside Amigo. So I can take this hot pants break and drop it right into Amigo. And what we can do is change this mode from sample to slice. And then when we click auto slice here, it will actually automatically slice based on the threshold that you set within here. Now, with all my different hits, they get mapped automatically to my keyboard, starting at middle C. And of course, I can zoom in and move these hit markers around as well if the auto slice isn't perfect in certain areas. And then if I just change that threshold, if I increase it, I get less slices. And we can hear there's a little bit of a clip there, so we can just drop this back. Now we have some different things we can do within here, and one is this mode here. So we can go trigger, or we can change it to through, where it will trigger at the slice and then play through the rest of the sample. And it is important to remember that in slice mode, everything is in mono, so I can't trigger multiple hits at once. Now I can, of course, enable velocity. And then I can turn on gate mode, where I have to hold down the key to play the full sample. So if I turn off through, just do trigger. So you can get that kind of stuttery effect. Now, what I can then do is begin manipulating a little more if I want to reverse things. I could come up here and start pitching. A hallmark of early 90s jungle is that time stretch sound applied to breakbeats, and early Akai samplers imparted this sound on samples, and there have been many VSTs that have tried to emulate this. Amigo can actually do that too. While time stretching in that Akai sense has nothing to do with Amigas, it was an Akai feature and sound, it's a welcome addition to the Amigo sampler, just adding a bit more utility to it. So I can enable stretch. Amigo also has a pretty nifty chord memory functionality, similar to what you would find in an old synth like a Alpha Judo. And it's great for getting that sweet parallel harmony sound. Now, I did a video on this a long time ago, and I'll put a link in the description down below, but it's how you could take a single note from a synth, a sample of a single note, and then play a chord in your sampler to create a very old school sounding pad. And so what I can do is take a single note sample here, throw it into Amigo, change my mode back to sample, and I have a poly or mono mode here. So in mono mode, I can only play one voice at a time, so very old school sound. Or I can enable poly mode here and enable chord memory, and then I click record, and I play an actual chord. Then I turn off record, and now when I press one key, it will play that full chord. Pretty cool stuff. So in closing, my final point here, this thing just looks cool. And you can come in here to the UI and do things like change the colors of all the various elements in here. So you could personalize it, make it your own. Really awesome VST that these guys have put out at Potenza. Super cool. I think even if you own Tal Sampler, it is worth owning Amigo. Does that Amiga sound very well. And then the other differentiator I would say is the auto slice within here, along with that Akai Timestretch sound. I think it gets it spot on those different areas there. So go check it out. It's cheap. Support the crew. Pick it up. Go make some Amiga bangers in your computer. Have a good one.